Welcome back to another video where I'm just angry. I feel like a lot of my recent videos have either been angry or sad or angry or sad. The last time I did a video of this style, I had decided to live stream it, but I can't really live stream anymore because I don't have a laptop that I can live stream from. So if you want live streams, get me to 1,000 because then I can live stream on my phone. But by 1,000, I mean 1,000 subscribers. I've noticed that I'll shill at the end of my videos and then not tell you how to do any of the things I'm telling you to do. So just professional YouTuber over here. What are we talking about today? We are talking about the most frustrating argument that I frequently get into with, Islamists, fundamentalists, apologists online. And the argument is it's two different arguments, if I'm completely honest. The first argument is the validation of pedophilia in Islam, and the second one is the age of Aisha, who was Muhammad's child bride. We're not going to sugarcoat it. We're not going to, add some sprinkles and some sparkles to Muhammad and what he did. He married a child, a 6-year-old, and he raped her when she was 9 years old and continued to rape her until she was 18, which ironically is the age at which he died. She was 18 when he died, which is, I find that just like a cruel cosmic joke. So technically, Aisha was only raped by Muhammad, like only, exclusively raped by Muhammad. I don't really understand like the first of all the dumb arguments. Second of all, like the running away from it. I think that there's one of two ways, in my opinion, that you can go with this argument and not look like a moron. The first one is to be logically consistent and just admit that Islam allows pedophilia, because while we can, debate on the moral standing of raping a child, because that's what it is, we can't really sit here and argue about the age of Aisha, which I feel like is it's a pointless argument. Because she herself tells you how old she is. And the second thing you can do is reject the hadith, which I feel like a lot of people do, but it doesn't really take away the fact that Islam allows pedophilia. I've had this argument so many times online that my brain also, I've been like through a little bit of a depression spell, so you'll have to forgive me if I kind of jump from subject to subject. I'm kind of all over the place today, but I've had this argument so many times online that my brain is just glue. Like I can't believe that people are still sitting here making the dumb, like you haven't even updated the arguments. You've just made the arguments dumber. Like I've seen arguments like, oh, they just forgot to place the ones in the hadith, so she wasn't 6 and 9, she was 16 and 19, or she only counted the years after hijrah, so technically she was 12 and 14, or whatever the fuck. So what are we talking about? For those of you who aren't, who weren't previously Muslim, or who have no idea what I'm talking about, being current Muslims, or just not very practicing Muslims, or just not knowing what I'm talking about, or being from a different religion, Muhammad married a child. Her name was Aisha. She was the daughter of his best friend, Abu Bakr, or Abu Bakr. I don't know. I've forgotten how to pronounce it in Arabic. But he married a child when she was 6 years old, and he consummated that marriage, i.e. he raped her when she turned 9 years old. This is a known tradition. I was taught this when I was in Islamic school, when I went to madrasa, when I went to Islamic school, from two different organizations. Many of my friends learnt the same thing. It's an authentic narration. And I just wanted to go over that before we start digging into the arguments. So how exactly do Muslim sources work? There are 4 different Muslim sources or Islamic sources. We're going to focus on the first 2 because the rest is kind of complicated. The first 2 are the Quran, which is the word of God, and the second is the Hadith, which is the words of the last and final messenger, Muhammad. This is him. Rate him on a scale of 1 to 10. I think that I gave him way too much credit. This is a flattering image of him. So what was I saying? So yeah, there is the Quran and there are the Hadith, which are the narrations or the sayings or the teachings of the Prophet Muhammad. Now there are 6 books that are called the Sahih Sitta, or the authentic 6. There are 6 books of Hadith that are considered to be, good, like on a scale of how accurate they are the most accurate teachings of the Prophet, and the collectors collected them in the most accurate way possible. This was many years after his death, a few hundred years after his death, that they collected them, but they have a chain of narrators, and that's how they collected those Hadith. There are these 2 sources, the Quran and the Hadith, are indisputably, for the majority of Sunni Muslims, authentic sources for practice in Islam. For the majority, okay? Now there are different branches of Muslims. There are Shias, there are Quranists, there are Sufis, there are all kinds, right? But for the majority, we're talking like 80% of Muslims, these 2 are authentic sources. And I know I'm repeating myself, but there's a very good reason why I'm repeating myself. Now, the narration about Aisha's age, there are narrations where she has reported herself, her age at marriage and her age at consummation, and she says 6 and 9, and there are several. And the 2 sources, the source that narration comes from is from Sahih al-Bukhari, and in Bukhari there are only authentic narrations. Hadith have different gradations. So there are Sahih, which is authentic, it's indisputable, these are the words of the Prophet. There's good, which is, comparable, it's a good, there's some discrepancy in it, but for the most part this is a good narration. This is more or less what the Prophet said. There's da'if, or weak, which probably means he probably didn't say it, but he may have said it. And then there's fabricated, which means the Prophet didn't say it, we're rejecting it completely. In Bukhari there are only authentic narrations. There are no Hasan narrations, there are no good narrations, there are no da'if narrations, there are no fabricated narrations. There are only Sahih, authentic, top tier A1 narrations. Aisha's confession, okay, where she talks about her age, is in Sahih al-Bukhari, and there are other narrations in Sahih Muslim which is the same. They are all Sahih narrations. In the other books like Ibn Dawood, like Tirmidhi, like Ibn Majah, like all those books, they have other gradations of hadith, but in Sahih Bukhari and Sahih Muslim, which a lot, like the narrations come from, all of them are Sahih, like all of them are authentic. So I don't understand why we're still arguing about it. I can kind of get it from Quranists who don't accept those hadith, but I don't get it from the rest of the Sunni world, which are just sitting there trying to act as though we forgot ones or zeros or whatever. Anyways, a lot of someone told, because I put out a tweet saying, what arguments have you heard, like what apologist arguments have you heard about the age of Aisha? And I got a lot of responses, but one of the responses I got was that, why don't you include the arguments that you used to make while you were a Muslim? And if I'm completely honest, like I was a fundamentalist, I did not make any arguments. In my book, while I was a Muslim, okay, God said and I just accepted it. I agreed that this was allowed. I didn't have to sit there and be like, oh, this was the rule at the time, or whatever the hell, or like whatever the hell. I accepted it. I wasn't disloyal like the rest of you, okay? Like, I just went on with my day. Like, even as a young girl, I was obsessed with getting married, because in my brain, in my stupid kid brain, and exactly the reason why 9-year-olds shouldn't be getting married, in my stupid kid brain, marriage was like a way out of me from my family. You know, it was a way out for me, because marriage was just this land where, you know, I could do whatever the fuck I wanted. Anytime I went up to my mom and I was like, Mom, can I get this? She would be like, you can have that when you get married. Married was a prize. So I was never against it, if I'm completely honest, until, you know, I left Islam and I understood how stupid that is. And it's just like a very quick shift of being like, oh, well, if there is no God and none of this is just, all of this is just bullshit, then maybe, just maybe, there's something else to consider, like a person's age and their level of understanding. And I mean, we can get into that another time. In my opinion, Muslims who make these apologetic arguments are weakening, like they're making a mockery of their beliefs, because God ordained this for you. Why are you making haram the thing that he's made halal for you? Like, why are you doing that? That's like worse than being an ex-Muslim. Changing the rules of God. That's worse than being an ex-Muslim, dude. I actually wrote out a list of Muhammad's wives and just some notes about them, but I think we'll leave that as a bonus for the end. I really want to get into these arguments now that I've explained how the sources work, and that for the majority of Muslims around the world, not a minority, not a silent majority, the majority of Sunni Muslims, it is undeniable that Aisha was 6 years old when she was married to the Prophet, and 9 years old when the marriage was consummated. Muhammad raped a fucking child. Okay? And he only raped her. Only, exclusively. Because when he died, she was 18. So, I think the meatiest fucking argument is watching, like, these apologists, these pedophilia apologists, by the way, like trying to reconcile Muhammad was a man of his time as opposed to Muhammad was a man for all times. Like, they'll make this argument that pedophilia was common at the time. Like, a lot of people were getting married to children at the time, and somehow they think that that makes any of this okay. And they'll say, like, oh, Western people did it, you know, kings did it, princes did it, people in Shakespeare, Romeo and Juliet were really young. I've heard it all. You know what Shakespeare didn't claim to be? Like, even though he has a very sacred place in my heart, you know what he didn't do? Was claim to be a last and final messenger, a perfect human being, and an example for all time. You know who did do those things? Fucking Muhammad, okay? You need to get it together, okay? You are right. Probably at the time, 7th century, 8th century, there were probably a lot of fucking kids getting married. I'm not going to deny that. But did Muhammad not know that it was wrong? Because you seem to think that it's wrong, by the way that you're like making all these roundabout arguments to prove that he isn't a pedophile, when the evidence is clear that he is. Was he a man, a flawed character, you know, for the 7th century, and he lived as a 7th century person? Or was he a perfect human being for all time? Because if he was a perfect human being for all time, you are telling me that pedophilia is okay. Or recommended, because he actually did it. You know what is okay? Let me give you an example. There was a companion of his, a Sahaba, who, you know, picked up a cooked lizard and ate it in front of him. And Muhammad hated that. Like, he was like, ew, that's fucking gross. And, you know, his companions asked him, is it haram? Like, is it forbidden for us to do? He said, no, it's okay. I just wouldn't do it. It's halal, right? It's okay to do. But what do we call something that the Prophet actually does himself? We call that a sunnah, an action that he committed and an action that people are meant to emulate. He married and fucked, raped a child. That is his sunnah. He did that. So when you say that he is a perfect man for all time and his example is meant to be followed, what you are saying is that pedophilia is not only okay, but you are meant to do it. You know how fucked that is? Moving on, before I lose my whole mind, there was one argument I saw. Someone sent me an article. I think it was Saf, who is my Rasul online. She is my messenger. Follow her at saf.com. That is her Twitter handle. So she sent me an article, and in that article it said that the Quran says that marriage is only valid between consenting adults. No, it isn't. Like, we can just... Okay, first of all, a virgin's silence is considered consent. If a man asks a virgin to marry him in front of her walis and her mahrams, and she remains silent, she doesn't say no, that is considered consent, which is fucked up. Secondly, a woman, unless she is a matron, she's been married before, a woman who has never been married before, a virgin, cannot just consent to get married. She needs the permission of her father to get married. So actually, no. And also, the Quran isn't a practice guide. It isn't. The Quran doesn't teach you how to pray. The Quran doesn't teach you how to fast. The Quran doesn't teach you how to pay zakah. The Quran doesn't teach you anything. The Quran is a fear-mongering book. It is just meant to tell you to shut up and sit down. That is what the Quran is. Okay? Just because the Quran... First of all, it doesn't say that. Second of all, even if it did, the hadith say something completely different on how to practice that. Okay? Thirdly, there are verses in the Quran which allow women who have not started their period, i.e. children, okay? Even women who have started their period, in my opinion, are children. You're a child until you're like, in my opinion, 25. But we're gonna move on from that. Like, it mentions women who have not started their period, that they don't have an iddah period. Like, they don't, and that is the period after divorce. So for most married women who are adults, if a Muslim man divorces his wife, she has to refrain from getting remarried for 3 months in case she's pregnant. That doesn't happen for women who haven't started their period, and the Quran mentions that. It is in the tafsirs, it is in the hadith. Okay, you can blabber all you want about how the Quran is the major authority and the hadith don't have as high a standing, but you use the hadith to interpret the Quran. That is how Islam works. That is how it works for most Muslims around the world. I understand if you are not one of those Muslims. I understand if you're from a fringe group. Okay, get down with your bad self. I'm not sitting here debating that. I'm sitting here debating the majority. The majority follow this book. They revere the tafsirs. And the tafsirs are the explanations, the exegeses of the Quran. They're what is used to interpret what the Quran means. And the hadith. They revere all these things, regardless of what you, a fringe Muslim, might think. The third thing is that someone said, children are still being married underage in Western countries today. Okay, does that make it alright? It's just a non-argument. It's like me saying, you know, slapping a dog is wrong, and then saying, oh, well, your neighbor slaps a dog. Okay. You're missing the point. No one is saying that marrying children in the West is okay. No one is saying that. No rational, empathetic human being is sitting around saying that we are all just fine with Western countries marrying and raping kids. No one. I don't understand why you would use that as an argument to defend your point, because you clearly look at Western countries in a demeaning way. So are you saying that they're both bad, like Muhammad raping a kid and also Western countries raping a kid? Like, are you saying they're both bad? What are you saying? Because you're missing the argument. The next thing is that Aisha was mature because she narrated hadiths, and this is what I find so confusing. She narrates her own age, and y'all are so desperate to reject that. She narrated her own age. 9, 6, right? She narrated those numbers. But y'all are so quick to reject that. But you're willing to say that she was an adult because she narrated, I think it was the third most, like the words of the Prophet, the most hadiths. You know, there are people who memorize shit as a child. Like, they memorize the Quran, they memorize, you know, hadiths, there are child geniuses, you have them, right? That doesn't make them adults. They're still children. I don't... Okay, she narrated some shit. Okay, so what? She was groomed from her young age. She was married at 6, and she was groomed by this pedophile. What is your argument? What? A parrot can repeat things that you say. Does that make them, you know, does raping that thing make it an adult? Like, a parrot can parrot what you say to them. That does not mean that that is a grown, you know, fully functioning adult. That is a parrot. The next thing is that Aisha never said a bad thing about Muhammad. Can any of you just put yourselves in the shoes of a 6-year-old that was married to a 50-something-year-old man and imagine how it would play out if you were to just say bad shit about him all day? And this man has, you know, led wars, killed people, you know, sacked towns, fucked concubines. Like, you really think that that fucking thing is an argument? You really think that? And we're going to get into some of the fucked up shit he did. But such a dumb argument. You really think that they would let her live? He's had people assassinated. You really think that they would let her live if she narrated bad things about him? You really think that? History is written by the victors. Y'all stupid. See, like, you'll say stuff like that. Like, Muslims will bring things like that to me. And I'll be like, okay, well, can we not apply the same logic to Muslim sources? No, because Muhammad was perfect. It's such a dumb, like, I don't fucking understand. The next thing is that puberty is readiness for marriage. No, it is not. No, it is not. No, it is not. There are so many things that go into marriage. And as someone who has been proposed to several times as a child, like, the first time I was proposed to, I was 15. Like, I know that there's a lot that goes into marriage that a child would not understand, much less a 9-year-old. My sister, one of my sisters is 9, okay? That bitch cannot do basic arithmetic. And you're gonna tell me that that is an age to be married? Are you kidding me? Like, she started a period and everything. Like, she's, you know, she's a woman by Islamic standards, but that girl cannot, you know, she can't put a cohesive paragraph together. You're going to tell me that that's marriage material? There are so many things that go into marriage, okay? There's the sex aspect of it. Sex is an undeniable part of marriage. They are not ready for that because they don't understand. When I was 9 years old, I didn't even know what a penis was. Let's be real. I didn't even know what it was. And you're going to sit here and tell me that, you know, all these fucking 9-year-olds that are getting married off know everything there is to know about marriage, about anatomy and where things go and how things work? That they have any kind of decision making over their bodies? No, they don't. You know, and when they bring a child into the world, the mortality rate for giving birth when you are younger is huge because your hips have not had time to develop. A lot of people bring the argument, oh, Aisha never had kids. That's an indication that, you know, maybe she wasn't fucked as much as she said she was. And she, like, a lot of the rules about sex, right, about sexual stuff comes from her because Muhammad raped her a lot, okay? And people will bring that like, oh, there was no contraception at the time. And I had this argument today. It's the dumbest argument. There was no contraception at the time. She was clearly a virgin wife. Like, no. What's more likely is that her being so young and being raped from such a young age probably permanently damaged her. Probably. I'm not a doctor and I'm certainly not a medium, so I can't confirm, but probably because her body didn't have time to develop on a physical level. And mentally, I can't even imagine like how you can sit there and say that puberty is enough. Like it is the age that someone can get married and just, you know, have a relationship with someone. And I'll hear the arguments. Oh, you know, young kids have sex in the UK all the time. You know what they're not allowing in the UK? Is grown-ass men fucking and raping children. The next, so disgusting. I'm not going to read the whole fucking quote because it's honestly disgusting and I would like to hold on to the food that I had today. The next thing is that Aisha wanted Muhammad sexually. Have none of y'all had crushes on like teachers at any point in your life, and how terrible it would have been for that teacher to take advantage of you? Even if that's true, which I highly doubt that it was, because she was a 6-year-old when she got married to him. Even if that was true, and it's such a disgusting idea. Like, even if it was true, even if I was to entertain the ridiculous notion that a 6-year-old was sexually aroused by a 53-year-old man, 50 whatever the fuck he was, okay, this motherfucker. Does that make it okay? Does that make it okay for him to take advantage of a child having, I'm going to call it a crush, having a crush on him? Like, is that justifiable all of a sudden that he married and raped a child that had a crush on him? No, the fuck it doesn't. The next one is that girls used to mature faster. No, they didn't. No, they didn't. Maybe on a mental level, they matured faster, but they are still, as a 6-year-old, they are still not ready for marriage. As a 9-year-old, they are still not ready to be fucked. Okay? They are not. I don't care what anyone says. I don't care what data you bring me. They are not ready. I refuse to accept, like, I'm not even going to entertain evidence to the contrary. They are not ready. They are children. The next is that, the next is like a really dumb argument as well. He waited 3 years to rape her. And you know what idea that puts in my head, I don't know if this is me or if this is implied. Maybe he waited 3 years because he physically could not do anything for 3, like he couldn't fit for 3 years without visibly damaging her. How fucked up is that? And that does not mean that he didn't do other things. There are other ways to molest a child. You don't have to penetrate them in order to molest them. There are very graphic narrations of, him fondling her or thighing her or things like that. And thighing is where a man will masturbate by putting his penis between a woman's thighs rather than actually fucking her. There are narrations like that. So he waited 3 years to fuck a kid. Like, it's so disgusting how people can honestly sit there and justify that. It's so disgusting. The next thing is, we're going to get away from the disgusting stuff a little bit for a second, because I honestly feel sick. The next thing is, he married her for political and safety reasons. Now, to Muhammad's credit, he did marry some people, like some women, for safety reasons. There's one that I found, but we'll give him that. He did do that. But in the case of Aisha, that was not the case. Because A, she was the daughter of his best friend. B, so there was no need for a political tie. B, what is there to be okay, so here's Muhammad, here's Abu Bakr, okay? Like, Abu Bakr was his best friend. He had the highest political standing in the Ummah at the time, okay? That wasn't the Prophet Muhammad. He was the first fucking caliph, for goodness sake, right? What political gain or safety does Aisha need? None. This is such a dumb argument. And also, even if he did want to protect her, right, he wouldn't fuck her when she turned 9, first of all. And second of all, how hard would it have been to just adopt her? He had 6 kids, 2 of them passed away, so he had 4 kids, 4 daughters as well. He could have just added another daughter. Easily. If his intent was safety, that is what he would have done. And it's not like he hasn't adopted kids before. He had an adopted son called Zayd, who we will be talking about later. He had an adopted son called Zayd. He's done it before. It's not to do with politics or safety. He just wanted to fuck a kid. That's what he wanted to do. The next thing is just addressing Farid's stupid tweet where he was like, if the parents consent, then there's consent. Let me explain consent. I didn't ever think I needed to explain consent because I'm just not one of those people. Okay, I can't stand to explain simple things nicely. It drives me insane. Consent is yes. Okay? To consent to sex, you have to be an adult. You have to be fully aware of what you're getting into. If you are vulnerable, for example, it's unlikely that you can consent fully. For example, if you have no mental faculties, you're just, you're incapacitated in that way where you have no, if you're unconscious, if you're heavily drunk, if you are, you just don't have the capability, the mental capability to consent. You can't consent no matter how old you are. A child who is unaware or unable to fully understand what sex is incapable of giving consent. No permission slip from an adult is going to change that. Because that adult is not the child. And because a child cannot consent, any sexual act against a child is considered sexual assault or rape. So that is what Muhammad did. He raped a 9-year-old child throughout his marriage to her. The other debunked argument that I've heard is that adults play with action figures, so why do ex-Muslims or people who have a problem with the fact that Muhammad was a pedophile have a problem with the fact that Aisha played with dolls? Because collecting action figures is not the same thing as playing with dolls. And also, being an adult is not the same thing as being a 9-year-old. You fucking moron. Ali Dawah made that dumb argument, didn't he? Of course he fucking did. The next thing was that he's not a pedophile because his first wife was way older than him. She was 40, he was 25. He is a pedophile because he raped a child. 14.14 that I have here is probably 15 because I added some stuff in the middle there. But what I have listed as 14 is that Aisha gave consent. We've already gone over that. 9-year-olds can't give consent. They are children. Children cannot consent to sex because they don't fully fucking understand what that is. The next thing is that Aisha supposedly had a happy marriage. Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. Still a pedophile, still raped a child. The argument is not whether or not Muhammad had a happy marriage with Aisha. The argument is that he fucked a kid and that he was a pedophile. And that immediately makes pedophilia okay in Islam because he was a pedophile. That is the argument. And also, I'm not entirely sure that that's true. That is an argument for another day. But I am not entirely sure that she did have a happy marriage with Muhammad, because there are narrations where he, it's put in really soft terms, but he shoved her and left a mark on her chest. So I'm not entirely sure that they did have a happy marriage, especially if there was a power dynamic where he could say whatever the fuck he wanted and she couldn't. Because she would literally be lynched for doing that. Next point. It's a personal matter and we shouldn't intervene. Guess the fuck what? If there is an incident happening next door where someone is getting beaten the fuck up, that is not a personal matter. That is something for the police to handle. If someone marries and rapes a child in the comfort of their home, that is a personal matter and I shouldn't get involved. Excuse me? If you know of anyone who is marrying children and raping children, please do something about that and do not brush it off as a personal matter, because that is not a personal matter. Someone is being harmed in that situation. Someone is being harmed in that situation. Please take action and don't use the dumb fucking excuse that it was a personal matter and it was none of my business. Second of all, he's a public figure. We can say whatever the fuck we want about him. He put his life on display that gives us the right to dissect and criticize it. In the same way that you would criticize any political figure. If a political figure today married a 6-year-old and then raped her at 9, would we hear the end of it? If fucking David Cameron did that today, if Boris Johnson did that today, if Donald Trump did that today, would we let them live it down? No, the fuck we wouldn't. So why should we make an excuse for Muhammad? Why does he get a pass? Because you like him for whatever the fuck reason you do? Sorry. I don't like him. I get to criticize him. Even if you do like him, why would that prevent you from criticizing him? There are plenty of people I like that I criticize. Shakespeare, close to my heart. But you know what? Tempest wasn't my favorite work. Fucking sue me. I'm allowed to have that opinion. In my opinion, if you don't criticize someone's ideas, that means you haven't given them enough thought. If you don't criticize someone's actions, you are not a true, venerator of that person, because you only appreciate what the good that they did. You didn't have the balls or the true insight into their lives to be like, you know what, he kind of fucked up here. I'm not gonna take that into my life. I'm not gonna let that be something that just slips my notice. Fake fans. The last and final thing that I want to address, and I think is the strongest argument, and it isn't even that strong, the strongest argument that can be made about the age of Aisha, not about pedophilia being allowed in Islam, about the age of Aisha, is that the hadiths are man-made and that they shouldn't be considered an authentic source. And you know what? I kind of agree with that. But, as I said before, 80% of the Muslim world, most Sunni Muslims, would lynch you in the street for saying that the hadiths are man-made, because they are considered the second most reputable source for Islamic living. And that is your strongest argument against the age of Aisha. I'm not going to entertain the fucking she was 16, 19, because that's bullshit, okay? That's just pulling bullshit. That's like a conspiracy theory. Like, I'm not even going to bother putting up with that. But the rest of them are actual arguments that people have made. And I'm so sick and tired of hearing them. I'm so sick and tired of people, like, bringing them to my attention and being like, this is a real argument that we're going to use and act like is reputable. And it's not. You're just validating pedophiles. You're just allowing pedophilia. And you know what? If that is your moral compass, if you think that pedophilia is okay, that is something we can talk about. But if you're going to sit here and apologize for the fact that Muhammad raped a child and then be like, no, but I don't agree with pedophilia, you need to get your shit together. Because that's inconsistent. Okay, I think I've gotten most of my, like, shit out. I want to briefly look into Muhammad's other wives, because I was looking into whether or not he married any other underage people. And you know what? To his credit, while it's not a lot, he didn't. I looked up all the ages that were available of his other wives, and I just want to talk about a few of them. That does not make him a saint, because a lot of the ways that he got some of these wives are kind of questionable and downright disgusting at worst. But he didn't marry any other children. Maybe he just wanted the one. He wanted the novelty child bride. So his first wife was a wealthy businesswoman. She was 40 and he was 25. And he actually married her previous to Islam. His second wife was a woman named Sauda, and he married her while he was still quite unpopular. She was considered to be the oldest and plainest of his wives, and she was described as fat and very slow. And Muhammad considered divorcing her, but she persuaded him to keep her by saying that she would trade off her turns for sexy times to Aisha. So the thing was that Muhammad had like a roster, so every night he would spend with a different wife, and she would trade her turn so that he could spend more time with Aisha, which makes it even more creepy and sad for this woman because she was that attached to him. He also married the daughter of his second best friend, Omar. Her name was Hafsa. He married a woman named Zainab bint Khuzaimah, who was considered to be really charitable. That was the only real thing that I could learn about her. He married Salama or Hind. She was actually a social reject because she converted to Islam, and that is one of the major reasons why he married her, was for protection. So credit where credit is due, he did do that. We're not done yet though. The next wife that he married was Zainab bint Jahash, who was his first cousin, thereby allowing cousin marriages, and also the wife of his adopted son. And he kind of pressured a divorce because Zainab was so madly in love with him because he saw her that one time, and then he married he married his son's wife, like adopted son, which a lot of people try to make clear, but it doesn't change the fact that you're fucking, like, best friends don't even sleep with the same women. They don't have to be blood related. Like, it's just gross, man. The next wife, she was actually a concubine after the massacre of the Banu Qurayza, and the Banu Qurayza had they were a Jewish tribe in Medina whom, like, there's a longer story to it and there's a lot of context to it. I'll give you that. But basically what happened was that because of what was considered to be a betrayal of this Jewish tribe, what was considered to be allegedly, I don't know all the, like, I'm not ready to bust out the whole story here, but what he did was that he slaughtered all the adult men in Banu Qurayza. So, and he captured people, and one of the women that he captured was a woman named Rayhana, and he kept her as a concubine. He didn't even marry her. The next wife that he had was a woman named Juwaria, and she was captured following a battle and then married. So he didn't keep her as a concubine. She actually became a wife. Then he married Ramla, who was the daughter of Abu Sufyan, who was his, at the time, his like rival. He was the leader of the Meccan forces after Abu Jahl or Abu Hakam. So she was the daughter of his rival, and that, like, gave him some kind of credibility or some shit. Then we have the unfortunate case of Safiya, who was another one of his wives, and she was Jewish, and after the defeat at Khaybar, she was also from the Banu Qurayza. Muhammad married her hours after he oversaw the killing of her husband, her brother, her father, her uncles, and several cousins. She was essentially a trophy. I don't know how you're going to sit here and justify that, because that is gross. And he also consummated that marriage within about 3 days. Gross. Another concubine he had was a gift from Egypt, Maria the Copt. So he kept her as a concubine. He never actually married her. There were other instances or, like, indications of pedophilia that I was able to pick up. There was the case of Habib, and he said this while she was a baby. He said, if I'm alive when she grows up, I will marry her. And he said this while he saw her crawling around as a baby. There was another girl actually, called Durra, and she was actually his stepdaughter, and one of his wives, Ramla, caught him, like, staring at her. She was 6 years old when he died. And the reason he gave, like, she asked him, do you intend on marrying her? And he said, no, she's my stepdaughter. And I think her father shared wet nurses with him, and that was, like, his reason for not wanting to marry her. Not that she was a fucking kid and 6 years old when he died. And he was, like, 63 when he died, if I'm not wrong. Correct me if I am, but, like, is that not in fucking insane? And, like, I could kind of look past this. I can kind of, and I'm not saying that I would, but I can kind of look past this if he had the affliction of only wanting to fuck kids. I can kind of look past it, but it's very clear from his perverse roster of women that was not the case. Like, it wasn't the case that he was just attracted to children. He just wanted them for the simple fact that he could have them. And if that is not gross and disgusting, I don't know what is. And I don't understand why these arguments keep happening. I don't want to sit here and argue about the sorry incident of a grown man in his 50s fucking a child. Like, I don't want to have that conversation every single fucking day of my existence, please. Every single day, there's always someone who wants to debate me or wants to argue with me or just wants to have an irrational screaming match about the age of Aisha, and I'm so done with this argument. There is no way to justify it. There is no way to get around it. She was a child. No matter how you slice it, she was a child. I've seen people send me like Al Yaqeen Institute fucking lectures. Are you gonna deny the fact that she reported herself her age? She did that herself. It wasn't even someone else. Like, I've said that so many times now. Like, I can't get over that you're gonna look past that. The fact that she said her age herself. Is she gonna get her age wrong? I don't fucking think so. I don't think so. And when you also regard her as a narrator of his words, when you also say she was grown because she narrated some of the most hadith, you know, third most hadith, that's what makes her grown. After you're going to say that, you're going to also say, oh no, that hadith isn't correct though. The one where she tells her own fucking age. It's ridiculous. I'm sorry, it is. That is it for this video. I am fully fucking angry about this. Someone said, like, can you make a clip for Twitter that we can just send out? Feel free to slice this up for whatever point you need, and then, you know, throw it onto Twitter. You are more than welcome to use that, because if it ends an argument, it ends an argument. Some of these points... Sorry, I have the fucking hiccups. Okay. Some of these points are really long. I did tell people that this was going to be a long video. I made another, you know, 2 other videos in this style. One about slavery, because someone actually thought that slavery was valid, and the other one was about modesty culture, shame culture. So this will be added to that, you know, grouping or style of videos. I hope you enjoyed this. I hope it was informative. I hope you gleaned something from this, because Lord knows I'm just so angry about this. I'm so tired of having this argument. I have it every so often with someone. I actually entertain it, but normally this argument approaches me every day, and I'm so tired of it. It's such a disgusting argument to have also, because we're talking about a child being raped and people validating that. But with that, I'm going to sign off, because I've had enough. I've had my fill on the talk of pedophilia and other disgusting things that Muhammad did in his life. If you enjoyed my content, I don't know what about this you would enjoy, but if you did enjoy it, please do leave a like. Remember to share this video. Please feel free to subscribe. If you would like to see more of this kind of content, also feel free to leave suggestions in the comment below. If you didn't like this at all, you know, feel free to dislike, you know, roast me in the comments. Tell me why you didn't like this video. What could I improve? You know, maybe it was all the swearing. I'm sorry, but that's not going away. So if that was your complaint, tough tits. But, you know, let me know anyways what you thought of this down below. If you think that my argument could have been a bit stronger. This was more of a rant, really, than like a debunking session. If you would like to support me in a more monetary way, I have a Patreon that you can support me on, or I have a PayPal if you would like to just give a one-off donation. All the links are in the description below. Also, I would like to announce some good news. So let's end this on a positive note, that myself and Alicia managed to raise £210 for Macmillan Cancer, because we were sober for October. That campaign is going to be open all of November, so if you would like to still donate, please feel free to. We've upped our original goal was £200, but we've upped it to 300 in case people still want to donate. So if you would like to still donate to that campaign takes precedence over my, donations you want to send to me. So please do consider donating to our Sober October campaign. We celebrated on the 1st of November, and I'm not going to be sober this month. But if you wanted to support Macmillan Cancer anyway, it's a pretty good charity. Please do consider doing so. I'm actually really, really proud of the fact that we raised that much money. So, yay me. I'm going to sign off. Thank you for joining me, and I hope, you'll have a good day and good night, and please do not marry any children, please. Goodbye, and I will see you in the next video.